Greetings, Earthlings! Welcome back to 7th Street, and I know, it's been a very long time since I've done one of these videos. I really have been busy, and it's hard to keep going with this sometimes. But I finally got a comment. I cannot recall the name of the YouTuber at this current moment, but he sort of called me out for it. So here you go, man. I am rushing this one out, and I promise to keep on top of the videos a little bit more. But that being said, make sure that you check out some of my other content, some of my original films, my original short films. Also, Jesus, I Was Evil is on Tubi. But without further ado, let's get into my top 5 favorite horror movies from the year 1987. Number 5, Enigma. The maestro Lucio Fulci finds himself yet again making the top 5's list with his unique enigma of a film, Enigma. Often considered to be one of Fulci's lesser efforts, Enigma tells the story of an ugly duckling turned ravishing psychic killer that torments the halls of her all-girls boarding school.
How did you know there was a lighter in that drawer? Everybody keeps a lighter in the drawer of their bedside table. I don't. Neither do I.
The beginning of the film introduces us to Kathy, the loser girl at her dormitory that all the other girls pick on. After one exceptionally mean and really rather rapey prank, Kathy is struck by a car and left in a coma. We are then introduced to Eva, a beautiful girl who comes to take Kathy's place and also seems to have some sort of psychic bond with the comatose girl.
Why are you angry with me? What have I done?
Through Eva, Kathy is able to manifest deadly paranormal happenings like monster statues, killer reflections, and even man-eating slugs. Yummy. Look, this one is not going to stand up to Fulci's work from the late 70s and early 80s. Nothing will. But let's not forget that the man knows how to tell a good horror story. By 87, Fulci is still incredibly innovative with the camera, and the lighting in Enigma is one of my favorites of his later films. The mood and atmosphere is really intriguing in this one, and despite its unfortunately goofy elements, the movie still possesses the ability to be visually creepy at times. I really like this one a lot, especially the ending, which showcases some awesome camera work and music that blend really nicely together. Number 4, The Gate. Now, here's one that's been on my list for quite some time now. The Gate is a movie that I saw on AMC really late one night when I was a kid, and I remember really liking it and sort of considering it to be like a kid's horror movie, something like Gremlins. But when I revisited the film as a teenager, I realized how dark it really is at times, and I'm a little bit confused as to who the filmmaker thought the audience for this movie was. But nevertheless, it's a first-rate 80s monster flick. It reminds me a lot of movies like Killer Clowns from Outer Space and movies like The Willies. It's a movie that is firmly tongue-in-cheek. The Gate is about Glenn and his best friend Terry, two loser preteen boys that accidentally open up a gateway to hell in Glenn's backyard with a satanic rock metal album that the boys play backwards. When Glenn's dog abruptly dies and one of the sister's friends buries the animal in the backyard, demons from an ancient civilization are released, seeking the two humans that opened up the gateway as sacrifices to the demonic world. Glenn, Al, and Terry, who are all spending the weekend home alone, must fight to save their lives and close the gate. Yeah, like I said, the gate is a really strange one, but at the same time, it's not shocking to see why it's such a fan favorite. It's very goofy and fun, full of high energy and nostalgic 80s characters, not to mention the amazing special effects. The creature suits and compositing still looks good to this day, and some of the more shocking scenes, like the mom ghost turning into the dead dog, is genuinely creepy. Not much else to say about this one. I'm positive that you've all seen it, and if not, make sure you check out The Gate before it's too late. Number 3, Angel Heart.
Some religions think that the egg is the symbol of the soul. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Would you like an egg?
No, thank you. I got a thing about chickens.
You know, some might say that Angel Heart isn't quite horror enough to be on this list, but to those people I'd say, you're absolutely wrong. If Seven and Silence of the Lamb can be considered horror films, if Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is a horror film, then Angel Heart is most definitely a horror movie. I think my favorite aspect of this movie is the way that the story develops. The movie begins like a rather typical noir mystery thriller and slowly turns into a supernatural horror movie over time, climaxing in one of the best horror movie plot twists of all time.
If I could just hold your child.
I know who I am.
The movie stars one of my very favorite actors, Mickey Rourke, as Harry Angel, a grungy New York private investigator whom is hired by a mysterious man named Louis Cypher to track down a singer named Johnny Favorite. It turns out that Johnny Favorite was a fairly famous singer until he was shipped off to World War I and then returned a shell of his former self. Now he's missing. Angel Heart weaves a bizarre and dark narrative as Angel plunges deeper and deeper into the mystery of what happened to the singer, eventually finding himself in Louisiana and among a voodoo cult. Angel Heart is a beautiful movie, guys. Expertly written, directed, and photographed beautifully, its haunting nature will stick with you for days after seeing it. I know this one might not be for everybody, it's really not your typical horror film. Like I said, it's much closer to a film like Seven or maybe Serpent in the Rainbow, but if you haven't checked this one out, I'd highly suggest that you do so.
I know who I am.
Number 2, Hellraiser.
Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
It's amazing to me that Hellraiser came as late as 1987. Pinhead, the series mascot, often gets lumped into the Mount Rushmore of slasher villains from the 80s, which all came out many years before. Not only does Pinhead stand out because his movie came out much later in the decade, but because he's not really a slasher, like, at all. And he's not actually really even intended to be the face of the Hellraiser series.
Jesus wept.
Hellraiser was written and directed by master of horror Clive Barker and was based off Barker's novel The Hellbound Heart. Hellraiser also marks the directorial debut of Clive Barker. Somewhere in Morocco, Frank Cotton tracks down a mysterious puzzle box called the Lament Configuration. After taking the box home and opening it, Frank is torn to shreds by hooks and chains in what appears to be a BDSM session from hell. Sometime later, Frank's brother Larry moves into the old home with his wife, whom unbeknownst to Larry used to sleep with Frank back in the day. One day while fixing up the house, Larry cuts himself on accident, bleeds on the floor, and this ends up resurrecting Frank's skinless corpse beneath the attic floorboards. Julia discovers the zombie Frank, and instead of reacting how a normal person would react, Julia decides to help her ex-lover fully regenerate his body by providing him with random victims. You might be wondering where in the hell Pinhead factors into all of this, and the answer is not very much. He has very little screen time in most Hellraiser movies, and this is actually what I think I like most about the series. Every movie is much more about the human story than just your typical slice and dice slasher film. But that's not to say Pinhead isn't the show stealer. He most certainly is. Pinhead only has a few choice lines of dialogue, but they are easily the best and most quotable lines in the movie, and frankly, in the entire series.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Number 1, The Lost Boys.
Oh, never! I knew it! I am not! So where are you? The flying nun?
Alright, The Lost Boys. Anyone who has watched my 31 Days of Halloween series knows how much I love this movie. Since the first time I saw this one at about age 10, I have desperately loved this movie. Other than Todd Browning's Dracula and maybe a few choice Hammer Dracula films, The Lost Boys is definitely one of the greatest vampire flicks of all time. As most people know, I am a huge fan of the 80s post-punk aesthetic. I mean, this is literally how I dressed every day in high school. To those of us millennials, it seems that we have a certain romanticized notion of this era. A number of my favorite movies all come from this decade. A lot of my favorite music comes from this decade. The lights are brighter, the women are hotter. It's hard to explain sometimes, but I know I'm not alone here. The Lost Boys checks off all of these boxes. It seems like it was truly made for someone like me.
I'm looking for a Batman number 14.
That's a very serious book, man.
Only 5 in existence.
4, actually. I'm always looking out for the other 3.
The movie begins with a mother and her 2 teen sons, Michael, played by Jason Patric, and Sam, played by Corey Haim, that move from the suburbs into the fictional beach town of Santa Carla, the murder capital of the world. Upon arrival, Michael instantly takes to chasing a girl around that he just met. Who could blame him? Look at her. And Sam makes some new friends at a comic book store that go by the name The Frog Brothers. They inform Sam that the reason Santa Carla is considered the murder capital of the world is due to the fact that they have a little problem with a roaming gang of pop-punk vampires.
You're eating maggots, how do they taste?
In case you hadn't guessed already, the woman that Michael is chasing is a part of said vampire gang, and they plan to make Michael their newest inductee. Now it's up to Sam and the Frog Brothers to save his brother and the town. I know I'm glossing over a lot here, but if I start talking too much about this film, this video would end up being over an hour long. The Lost Boys is just one of those movies. It looks great. It's got amazing production value. The soundtrack is killer. I even have the soundtrack in my car. It's good on every occasion. It has tons of rewatchability. It's really fun to call out some of the iconic lines of the movie while you're watching it.
Death by stereo.
And okay, maybe I'm giving a little bit too much information here, but I have always had a pretty sizable movie collection, right? Even in high school. And a lot of times, I would have girls come over and watch movies in my room. Yeah, that's right. I'm the one who invented Netflix and chill. Anyhow, women love The Lost Boys. This was always my go-to movie with the ladies, man. Alright, I've already said too much. Lost Boys is number 1. You'll never convince me otherwise.
One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn vampires.
Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning back in to watch this video. Once again, I am very, very sorry for the lack of content in the past 2 months or so, but I promise I'm going to be getting back at it. I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas.
The box. You opened it. We came.
It's just a puzzle box!